ended U.S. Senate term that he never should have been reelected to. Anyway, Senate Republicans are reluctantly floating the possibility of a short-term debt deal. Here's Texas Senator John Cornyn.
The problem with a mini deal is we have a maxi problem. All it does is delay the moment of truth, so I'd say better now than then, but if we can't, then we'll take the savings we can get now and we will relitigate this as we get closer to the election.
All right, that's where Senate Republicans are, but House Republican negotiator Eric Cantor has already rejected the short-term extension. So who has the leverage on the debt ceiling? Who's winning? David Drucker is a staff writer for Roll Call, covers the U.S. Senate. Anita Dunn is former White House communications director. And Brian Jones is a former communications director for the RNC and worked for John McCain's 2008 campaign. Happy Tuesday.
Good to be here.
Happy July
What are we up to?
Happy canceled recess.
Happy canceled recess to you. I want to play a little bit from former President Bill Clinton. Over the weekend, he made a surprise visit to Aspen, because who doesn't just pop into Aspen? When you're an ex-president, you get to do things like that, on sort of his idea of where this deal is coming to. I was just told we don't have the tape, but the president said, I don't think you can agree to some mega deal on Republican terms, David Drucker. If they get closer, I believe they will agree on a modest package of cuts, and the Republicans, if I were in their position, I'd say, okay, this only counts for 6 months or 8 months or whatever. House Republicans don't want to have it. They don't want to vote twice on this. Senate Republicans would love this deal. They seem to have basically saying, this is what we want, short-term deal, let's go.
Well, I think some Senate Republicans would like a deal like this. I don't think all. And I think here's the problem. If you look at how the fight over the continuing resolution went earlier this year, Republicans eventually got fed up with those 2- and 3-week spending cut deals, even though they were actually cutting real spending. And that tells me that I don't think there's going to be a lot of enthusiasm on the Republican side of the aisle, House or Senate, for a short-term deal, unless they feel like we're getting really close to a big sort of deal that we want, and therefore let's give it a little breathing room. We'll cut some spending, we'll raise the debt ceiling a little bit for a short period of time and continue working towards the big deal. Otherwise, I don't look for something that's temporary, because I feel like the uproar from the base, the uproar from the activists would cause them and the leadership a lot of problems.
You know, Brian and Anita, in your respective parties, I feel like things have changed since the CR. In the CR, Anita Dunn, I think Democrats just wanted any deal on the Hill. They were just like, get this over with, get it over. We're tired of talking about it. This time I sense that they're willing to go to the brink here. Is that fair?
Well, I think they see a Republican Party that has basically said you can only negotiate on air terms, and air terms mean that...
And they've already done this twice.
And they've done this twice, although obviously...
I mean, Bernie Sanders believes that.
Yeah. Well, obviously in the continuing, there are a lot of people who feel that the White House actually ended up doing quite well in terms of a so-called second stimulus. But what's really at play here and what is at stake here is a lot more, because it's a huge deal that everyone is talking about. And they're talking about something that will see us through for a long time here. And I think that Democrats look at the Republican Party and they say, you know, negotiation usually is a two-way street, and these guys have a bunch of one-way signs up right now, and that is something that's going to be unacceptable.
Brian Jones, today David Brooks refers to the Republican Party as not a normal party now if they won't take this deal. Pretty rough language for somebody that was hired by the Times to represent the Republican view. I think conservatives would say he's not a conservative. We won't get to that argument. But is it true that John Boehner doesn't have the credibility to sell a deal to his Tea Party caucus the way he did the CR and the other two, in the same way, that maybe it's a higher bar he has to meet this time?
I think he does. I think the issue is members of Congress in the House, more than anything else, want to be reelected. And
they do?
Well,
some of them do. I don't know if that's true.
My point is this. Having worked at the NRCC, I think what you see basically is 3 changed elections in a row, and people are afraid in terms of how this could all flesh out. People don't want to be for any kind of tax cut in an election year, particularly a year that people don't know how things are going to actually work for the party. So I think there's concern, and I think that's why you're seeing Republicans so dug in.
And very quickly, Anita.
You know, House Republicans already have a vote that they've taken earlier this year on the Ryan budget that not only would...
And they don't like it, right? They don't want to take another kind of...
Well, and I think
some of them regret it.
It is a vote that is not playing well with the American public, from a party that preached listening to the polls for 2 years. They seem to have walked away from that piece of dogma. The reality of this, Chuck, is that the next vote has to be one that both sides feel they can defend, which means both sides are going to have to be unhappy. And right now the Republicans are saying, no, we only want the Democrats to feel any pain on this one. We will go to the brink to protect a corporate tax jet break, a corporate tax break for jets, which at the end of the day is not something voters want to hear.
Very quickly,
they want these guys to be adults.
Very quickly, David. The Senate Republicans don't want to vote first, though, do they? They want the House Republicans to vote first so they know what they're voting on?
Well, I think that's probably how it's going to go. But I think ultimately you're going to need the president to play not just referee, but leader of his party here. He's going to have to decide, despite what he said about Congress needing to do its job, this is where we need to come down, tell the Democrats that, and lead them in that direction. And that will actually help the negotiations with Republicans because they'll at least know what they're dealing with.
All right. Coming up, we got all things Tim Pawlenty. And wait till you find out what Newt Gingrich has in common with The Office. David Drucker, Anita Dunn, Ryan Jones. Stick around for that. Trivia time. We asked in which congressional district did Barack Obama receive his highest vote percentage? 2008. Anita Dunn, what's the answer? You don't know? Communications are...
No. I would say David Plouffe would know.
Oh, he would know. It's New York's 16th district, where Obama received 95% of the vote. The district is represented by Congressman Jose Serrano. It's the outer boroughs. Take that, you Upper West Siders and East Siders. The outer boroughs gave Obama his highest number, not the Maloney district. Up next, panelists sticking with us, as I promised. Conventional wisdom out of Iowa is that somehow Republicans will pick purity over electability. Wait till you see this poll of caucus goers that says something different. You're watching the Daily Rundown, only on MSNBC.